I want to stick to the climate-related issues, I suppose, because the United Nations Gabfest COP30 actually kicks off later tonight, our time, in Belém, Brazil. Now, remember, the Albanese government wants to host this same thing in Adelaide next year at a cost of $1 billion to taxpayers. Anyway, in Brazil, there'll be plenty of the usual hypocrisy, delegates flying in on private jets, of course, and scoffing meat at the restaurants while they tell the rest of us to go vegetarian. But cop this, the Brazilian government has chopped down thousands of hectares of the Amazon to make way for a highway to ease COP30 traffic in Belém. Unbelievable stuff. A little earlier, I caught up with Marc Morano, who's the executive editor of Climate Depot, as they call it. He's in Brazil, and he's been out to look at that highway. I asked him to tell us what it tells us about the whole COP meeting process.
Well, we went out to the area where the road is still under construction in parts, and we saw the clear-cut path. We saw a dirt road, and it was an amazing sight because this is a rainforest city here in Belém. And what did they do with this United Nations Climate Summit in order to accommodate the billionaires, the oligarchs, the Hollywood celebrities, the world leaders who all come into this who all fly into this, and they would need to get around in this very small, relatively speaking, Brazilian city. They had to clear cut, by estimates, tens of thousands of rainforests, hundreds of thousands of trees, just to put this highway in so that the city would flow. And it's been a huge embarrassment for the United Nations. And what the most unbelievable aspect of this, not only just the hypocrisy, but the BBC is the one that broke it. It was the BBC
yes, exactly.
Of about 6 months ago. The same BBC that's now apologizing for biased climate coverage. And this is one area they actually got right at that moment.
Yeah, so good on them. It's a fact they couldn't avoid, I suppose. You mentioned Belém is a smaller city than usually hosts the COP, and it's relatively remote and difficult to get to.
Very difficult.
We're still going to see all the private jets and the rest to get there?
Yeah, people are going to be all sorts of private jets. It starts tomorrow. We're trying to get to the local airport and find out the parking situation for all these jets, if we can. It's sometimes very difficult to get straight answers on this. But typically, we've seen these conferences, and they can be anywhere from 20 to 40,000 people attending. They have carbon footprints larger than most cities around the world. In fact, they'll use more electricity during the next 2 weeks of the summit than most African nations do in a year. But at this summit, for the first time ever, there's not enough hotels, there's not enough rental housing. So they're bringing in massive cruise ships to dock along the rivers in the city here in order to house all of the delegates and activists that are coming from all over the world. Now, the first thing you need to know about a cruise ship is, according to all the evidence, when you look at the fraudulent concept of carbon footprints, but let's play along with it. A cruise ship, your average size cruise ship, actually has a higher carbon footprint than flying to a destination and getting a hotel combined. So the UN is clear-cutting the Amazon rainforest. They're bringing in massive carbon footprint cruise ships to house people, and they're bringing in all the billionaire class and all the celebrities and all the world leaders coming in on private jets. It is, in other words, a typical United Nations party.
Yeah, look, it's just so hypocritical, and especially because, of course, the UN just goes with alarmism and moral panic the whole time. Let's have a look at the latest from the Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres.
Every fraction of a degree means more hunger, displacement and loss, especially for those least responsible. This is moral failure and deadly negligence.
Mark, I don't know whether it's just me, but it seems to me that these sorts of speeches are getting more and more desperate, pleading with people to take them seriously, because the push to net zero is losing favour in many sensible countries like the US and the UK. Is that not the case?
It absolutely is. The United Nations has been promoting this idea that they can control the weather, control the bad weather effects since 1992, when we got into this whole mess under the Rio Earth Summit Treaty, when all the nations signed it. Well, if you look at every UN climate summit, the decades we've had, that's been, 33 years ago, Carbon dioxide has continued to go up in the climate. They've had no impact. So this year, they're trying to spin a new impact. Well, we may not have actually slowed carbon dioxide, but we've stopped the worst effects of global warming. We're not going to have that. They're dialing back the catastrophe predictions on some level to say it's because of the success of these summits and because of all these treaties we've signed.
But the fact is that the US is dropping out of Paris. We've seen leaders in Europe too suggest that they've gone too hard, too fast. Isn't the push towards net zero getting less frenetic rather than more so?
You have a rebellion brewing throughout Eastern Europe, from Hungary and Poland and Czech Republic, that aren't going to go along with this. You have Argentina pulling out their delegation when Donald Trump told them it wasn't worth it at last year's UN climate summit. So they are facing complete collapse. You have New York governor here in the United States, Kathy Hochul, not meeting the state's climate goals because she wants cheap and affordable energy. You have Gavin Newsom forced to retreat and beg oil companies to stay in the state because they need oil refinery. And you have Greta Thunberg just moved on to a completely different issue. She's now fighting Israel in the Middle East, and the whole issue of climate is long past. So she's even walked away from it. This issue, the most telling part of this, Chris, is that Donald Trump has come in to the face of the United Nations General Assembly, called it a cult, a scam, told them how wrong they were. He's dismantled the United States, complete climate agenda, and there has been virtually no pushback in any sector. Now, they can still fight back, the forces against Trump. They're pushing back about his immigration policy, but when it comes to climate, crickets.
Our country, Australia, wants to host COP31 next year. It will cost taxpayers $1 billion. I'm hoping we don't get it, therefore. The decision is going to be made at this COP, at COP30. What are the chances Australia's going to get this? Is it going to be a standoff between Australia and Turkey and therefore go to Germany instead?
We probably will know in the next 2 weeks. They usually announce with some certainty the next year's COP process. I don't know if Australia really wants it. I mean, I guess it brings in a lot of money gets pumped into these countries in a short amount of time. So economically, it's probably a good thing for the country. But short term, because you get all these wealthy climate activists from all over the world.
Hey, it's going to cost us $1 billion. We have to pay $1 billion to host it. How can that be a good deal?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe your cost-benefit analysis doesn't pay off there, but mostly you're going to have to put up with hot air and bull bleep because that's what these summits churn out on a nonstop basis. And I don't know how much longer this process can go. I mean, this is a failed and fraudulent process from the beginning, and they know it. And Europe knows. The big thing is to watch Europe and watch how they're just all the lies about solar and wind. They're taking over fossil fuels. We're just around the corner. It's all happening. 80% of the world's energy still comes from fossil fuels after 33 years of this UN bull bleep.